Post-metal is a mixture between the genres of post-rock, heavy metal, and shoegazing. Hydra Head Records owner and Isis frontman Aaron Turner originally termed the genre thinking man's metal, demonstrating that his band was trying to move away from common metal conventions. Post-metal is the favored name for the growing genre, but it is also referred to as metalgaze or shoegaze metal as a play on shoegazing, as well as atmospheric metal, and experimental metal, though this last term is also used to describe avant-garde metal. History: journalist Simon Reynolds writes that the term post-metal seems increasingly useful to describe the vast and variegated swathe genres that emerged from the early 90s onward. Sometimes beat-free and ambient, increasingly the work of home studio loners rather than performing bands, post-metal of the kind released by labels like Hydra Head often seems to have barely any connection to metal as understood by, say, VH1 classic dock makers. The continuity is less sonic but attitudinal, the penchant for morbidity and darkness taken to a sometimes hokey degree. The somber clothing and the long hair. The harrowed, indecipherably growled vocals. The bombastically verbose lyrics, song titles, band names. It's that aesthetic rather than a way of riffing or a palette of guitar sounds that ties post-metal back to Judas Priest and Black Sabbath. According to Aaron Turner of Isis, experimental bands such as Melvins, Godflesh and Neurosis laid the groundwork for us. We're part of a recognizable lineage. Although Neurosis and Godflesh appeared earlier and display elements befitting post-metal, Isis, who like Neurosis are linked to the sludge metal scene, are often credited with laying down the conventions and definition of the genre in less nebulous terms, with their release of Oceanic in 2002. Helmet's albums Meantime and Betty are cited as having eschewed the traditional concept of heavy music, and having trademarked the drop D power groove in May 4. They may be considered definitive texts in post-metal. Previously, Tool had been labeled as post-metal in 1993 and 1996, as well as in 2006, after the term came into popularity. In 2009, Jim Martin of Terrorizer commented that Neurosis' 1996 album Through Silver in Blood effectively invented the post-metal genre. Characteristics: a typical post-metal setup includes 2 or 3 guitars, a bass guitar, synthesizers, a drum kit and a vocalist, though many post-metal acts are instrumental. The overall sound is generally very bass-heavy, with guitars often being down-tuned to B or lower, the equivalent of a 7-string guitar. Post-metal songs tend to evolve to a crescendo or climax, building upon a repeated theme or chord shift. As Aaron Turner of Isis states, the standard song format of verse-chorus is something that has been done and redone, and it seems pointless to adhere to that structure when there are so many other avenues to explore. Criticism of the term: since this genre is relatively new and is only represented by a small number of artists, the need for an entirely independent classification of music has occasionally been questioned by music reviewers and listeners. As a label, some see post-metal as redundant, since some bands listed as post-metal contain many elements similar to doom metal, progressive metal, sludge metal, and stoner metal. Others, however, argue that these elements have been combined and altered in ways that go beyond the boundaries of those respective genres, creating the need for a single, distinguishing label. Pelican's Trevor Dubrow said, "I have an affinity for metal, but I don't think of Pelican as a metal band. So when people call us instrumental, or post-metal, or metalcore or whatever, I can see why they say that, but it's not something that I feel a close connection with. I feel our music has more in common with punk and hardcore." Isis is often cited as the source of a shared imagery in post-metal, although bands with similar visual themes playing in this style existed before Isis greatly popularized the subgenre. See also, List of post-metal bands, List of post-metal albums, Experimental rock. References. External links: Post-metal at Allmusic, Post-metal at Last FM.